Payton Turner was the 66th ranked prospect on the consensus big board, but despite that, the New Orleans Saints drafted him with pick 28 in the first round. Although if you look at his numbers from the 2020 season, so his last year in college, his numbers were actually pretty impressive. I mean, again, these are PFF grades, so I know that a section of my audience always just checks out when I talk PFF grades, but as I mentioned before, these are statistics that do translate to the NFL very well. If you have a good pass rush grade, you're likely to be a good NFL player, and if you have, a good run defense grade, you're likely to be a good NFL run stopper. That's kind of how that works. And you look at these grades, specifically the pass rush grade is very good. It helps you justify this pick a lot more than maybe you otherwise would, given the, consensus of him being a early third rounder. But, for the Saints, they liked him, and actually his numbers last year in a very limited sample size were good. He had 8 pressures in 144 snaps, which doesn't sound like a ton, but with that little sample size, that's actually pretty good. He was on pace for 55.6 pressures per 1,000 snaps. Now, 1,000 snaps, the reason I chose that number is if you were someone who was an every down player, that's probably about what you would get at. But, there were only 3 players who had more than 1,000 snaps last year. It's very rare. I think, your average really good edge rusher that starts a lot will get around 800 plus snaps up to 1,000. So still, it's a good ratio. And, 55 pressures would put you at the top of the list in terms of pressure categories. So listen. Obviously, the 8 pressures is just a small sample size. If 2 of those go away, his numbers look way worse. If he gets 2 more, his numbers look way better. So it's a small sample size. But again, small sample size, numbers were solid. He also had a 15.7 pass rush win rate, which was 31st in all of football. This is with hundreds of eligible players. He did a very good job at that. So the numbers were solid his rookie year, just like his numbers in college were solid. So how was his tape? That's the last question we have to ask, and it's a very important question. Well, let's start off with something like this. So this is an interesting example of kind of some flashes I thought he showed at the NFL level. So I've highlighted where he is on the field, and watch what's going to happen. Right when this play begins, you do see how, another offensive lineman kind of started off helping to block and making it a double team, but, kind of a double team with the tight end and offensive lineman. But then he's going to eventually let the tight end try to block Turner one-on-one as there's a linebacker who could potentially be blitzing. So long story short, Turner going up one-on-one against the tight end, which you do expect him to be able to win. But as you see, he pulls off a swim move pretty well. Now, he ends up stumbling to the ground, actually got flagged for a pass interference, or excuse me, not a pass interference. That would be weird. He got flagged for a roughing the passer play on that one because he hit Darnold low. But, the point remains that he did do a good job with his hands, and hands can be a great way you can win at the NFL level. So again, only about 140 snaps we have to go with here, but we saw some flashes. Again, something like this is another one where it's like, is this a highlight reel level play? No, we didn't see many highlight reel level plays from Payton Turner, but we did see him make some plays, and this is going to be an example. He's going up one-on-one against a left tackle on this play, and watch what he's going to do. Right when this play begins, you see how he's able to get his hands kind of on, the hand placement is good. He's going to try to really just use power, which is a big way he was able to win in college. Going to try to use power to win this matchup, and you see that the guard next to the tackle has fallen down, so this is obviously going to help things out a little bit. As you see, Turner's able to kind of just push him over, and then he reaches out and gets a sack there. So, I think you could look at that 2 different ways. The first way is, a guard fell down, basically creating a tripwire where the tackle then fell over, allowing Turner to get a sack. That is a fair thing to point out. The other, I think, just as fair thing to point out is Turner still had to drive the tackle back to activate that tripwire, essentially. So I would still consider that a good play by Payton Turner, even if he got a little bit lucky. Usually to get a sack, you need something to go your way other than just making a great play if you're an edge rusher. Typically, something else is going to have to factor in and something else factored in there. The reality is that's just football. It's very rare for you to make a good play on your own. You almost always need help. It's called the ultimate team game for a reason. Going over here now to talk some run defense. I thought his run defense is really where he shined, in my opinion, and this is going to be a good example of that, I think. Going one-on-one against a tight end. So again, favorable matchup for sure, but watch what happens. Right when his play begins, he's really doing a good job of, he uses that length where his left arm is kind of able to shove the tight end back, and regardless of where McCaffrey wants to run here, if he runs towards Turner, he's going to be in trouble. Turner's in position where McCaffrey cannot bounce things to the outside, so McCaffrey's not going to try to bounce things to the outside, and so when McCaffrey runs closer in, Turner reaches out, makes the tackle. Good play by Payton Turner. He constantly was in the right position to be able to make these tackles in the running game. His run defense was he was a legitimate good run defender last year. You can have some quibbles about the pass rush. I would say it was, could have been a little bit more consistent, although he did show flashes and still, had his moments for sure. But the run defense, I think he was legitimately just a good run defending edge rusher last year. This is another, just kind of a smart play, I guess is what I would say. It's just kind of a fun one. You have the left guard who's going to pull over to block Turner, so not moving a long distance, but watch what happens. As he goes out, watch how Turner kind of just sidesteps him a little bit and gets in position where at this point, what can you really do? You can't keep holding on to him or it'll just be a hold. So Turner did a great job on this play. As you see, Turner goes over and makes that tackle. So, hey, good run defending edge rusher with pick 28. If that's all he is, then that's good. And I think the tape was solid. The tape wasn't amazing. It wasn't the best edge rush tape this season. But hey, we also only got to see him in his first couple of games due to injuries. So there was also that. At the end of the day, it's almost always a mistake to reach on a prospect. That's just the vast majority of times when you look at guys who were selected before the consensus big board ranking had them, they typically are closer to what the consensus big board had them ranked than where they actually got picked. That's just what the history of the NFL shows. But it doesn't mean that's always the case. There have been exceptions to that rule, and it's very reasonable to suggest that Turner could be one of those suggestions, or one of those exceptions to that rule. And again, you look at his advanced statistics, they were very good in college, and they've been good at the NFL level as well, which is reason to be optimistic. The tape maybe not quite as impressive, and I think that's the same thing that was happened at college, was that his tape wasn't that impressive, which is why he wasn't considered a first-round talent, even though he had first-round numbers. But maybe this is just the kind of thing where he's someone who finds a way to make stuff happen, even if it doesn't always look good on film. At the end of the day, if you're getting a sack, you're getting a sack. The value of that is the same regardless of how impressive it looks. Obviously, the question is, can you consistently get pressures that way? But so far, he's had no issue doing it. So there is reason to be optimistic. But again, the last thing I have to say, and can't really understate this, we are dealing with a small sample size in this season. Yeah, it's 8 pressures. That really is such a small amount where just a couple can completely skew the data. So maybe he should have only had 6, but then he got lucky on 2 pressures. Maybe just the fact that he played Carolina, who has a trash offensive line, that allowed him to be able to get more pressures. All of that stuff does factor in, which is why you can't take too much from his rookie season. But what I will say is I'm very interested in seeing how his career goes from here, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him have a really good sophomore season. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.